Scary Mysteries, Twisted Twos, Arizona's Lost Dutchman Mine, and Bentwaters UFO. Tales of hauntings, murder, and scary mysteries. Every week, Twisted Twos dives into a pair of uniquely terrifying true stories that are worthy of a more in-depth look. For this week, we focus on the legend of Arizona's Lost Dutchman Mine and the mysterious sightings known as the Bentwaters UFO. Get ready for Scary Mysteries, Twisted Twos. Number 1. Arizona's Lost Dutchman Mine. For over 100 years, the Lost Dutchman Mine has remained the most enduring mystery story to come out of the American West. In Arizona's 3,000-foot-high Superstition Mountain is said to lie the mysterious Lost Dutchman Mine. But the legend began before the Dutchman, a German named Jacob Waltz, ever even came into the picture. While there are numerous versions to the origins of the Dutchman's mine, the general story involves the Apaches and the Mexican Peraltas. It's said the Apache tribe had a rich gold mine hidden somewhere in Superstition Mountain. When the Mexican Peraltas were given a Spanish land grant, they began mining in Superstition 2, and they are said to have found the original Apache mine. When the land was eventually ceded to the United States, the Peraltas moved out, burying their gold bullions and treasures in hopes they could return another time to take it back. But as the family left for Mexico, they were attacked by the Apaches. According to documents, after the massacre, only 2 young boys survived. Fast forward to the 1860s when German-born Jacob Waltz arrived in Phoenix. Other stories state he was with his friend, a man named Jacob Weiser, although no one knows if Weiser really exists or not. But at some point, Waltz and/or Weiser ended up saving a Mexican man's life while he was being attacked. The man turned out to be one of the boys who survived the original Apache massacre on the Peraltas, so in gratitude, he then told his new friends about the Spanish gold mines. The 2 friends never had trouble finding the mine. However, Weiser was murdered by marauding Apaches, and after that, Waltz packed up the mine, carrying as many gold ores as he could, and never returned again. Before Waltz died, he told a friend about the mine, saying no one would find it. He also left behind a rich gold ore hidden in a candle box under his bed. That ore was studied and discovered it did not come from any known mine in the area. As the years passed, the Lost Dutchman Mine passed into legend. Not only that, the lore of the Apaches came into play as well. It was the Apaches that believed Superstition Mountain was the home of their thunder god, and the subsequent conquistadors, explorers, and prospectors who dared to go in the area often vanished, went missing, or were murdered. Despite the risks, it's captured the imaginations of hundreds of prospectors and treasure hunters over the years. But there could be a real reason why finding the treasures of the Lost Dutchman's mine is extra difficult. The terrain itself isn't for everyone. The area around the mountains contains a lot of magnetic rocks which messes with electronics and compasses. Then the weather during the summer and winters are too extreme. In higher reaches, cell phones won't work and the cliffs are extremely steep and deadly. If there are believers, there are skeptics, and some of them say that the mine is nothing but fool's gold and that it doesn't exist at all. But in 1949, the discovery of carved stones dubbed as the Peralta stones added fire to the existence of the mine. A hiker found 4 flat stones with carved instructions, including a map. These stones are said to guide future treasure hunters to the hidden mine. On one of the stone maps, it had a heart-shaped marker with the date 1847 carved into it. This was a year before the Peralta massacre happened. By 1964, the area around Superstition had been declared a national wilderness area, so any prospecting or digging is illegal unless you have a permit to do so. Countless people still continue to search for the Lost Dutchman's mine, convinced that once they find the treasure, it's theirs for the taking. Some of the people who have attempted to find the mine include former Arizona Attorney General Bob Corbin. He searched for it on and off for close to 50 years. Today, the legendary pot of gold hidden somewhere in the Superstition Mountains still captivates treasure hunters from all over the world. Number 2. Bentwaters UFO. In December of 1980, U.S. Air Force members were stationed on two Royal Air Force bases, RAF Woodbridge and RAF Bentwaters in Suffolk, England. Just a day after Christmas, the officers on both bases saw unusual, colorful lights right above Rendlesham Forest, located 100 miles to the northeast of London. That night, Airman John Burroughs and his partner were on patrol at the base perimeter of Woodbridge Air Force Base when they saw something bright pass by. They informed their superiors, and minutes later, another patrol team arrived who also witnessed the lights. Burroughs and two other people from the other security team, which included Jim Peniston, headed to the forest to investigate. They were told to leave their weapons because they were stepping out of American jurisdiction. Once they entered the wooded area, the men saw a glowing object with a metallic appearance and colored lights emanating from it. They tried to move closer to it, but it moved away through the trees. They could hear the animals on a farm nearby going crazy. When they caught up to it, one of the men, Sergeant Jim Peniston, later recounted that he was amazed to find a black triangular craft with a glassy, metallic surface and red and blue lights. He couldn't see any landing gear, windows, or exhaust on the craft, but saw unusual symbols on the sides. At first, he thought it might be a top-secret aircraft from the U.S. Army or from NASA, but to his surprise, the symbols didn't bear a U.S. insignia and looked more like hieroglyphics instead. According to Peniston, he felt as if time dragged while they were in front of the craft. Before returning to report their findings, Peniston reached out and ran his hand along the surface of the craft. He said he felt engulfed in white light. His next thought was seeing the craft slowly ascend above the tree line and then vanishing. Peniston's story became even more intriguing as he later said he had vivid dreams and a compulsion to write down a series of zeros and ones in his notebook. Later on, this was determined and deciphered to be binary code. It was translated using a computer program and said to have translated into a cryptic message with several locations that point to various ancient sites in the world, including the Giza Pyramid, the Nazca Lines in Peru, and Taoshan Key in China, among others. Once the craft left, the men returned to their camp. The next day, Sergeant Burroughs filed a report to his shift commander. His commander confirmed the men saw something because Heathrow Tower also confirmed a strange object on their radar. Later that day, Sergeant Burroughs went with a British police officer to inspect the area and check for physical evidence. They found damaged trees and circular impressions where the craft hovered. Although the officer said the marks could have been made by animals there, they measured it and it revealed the shape was a perfect equilateral triangle, the same shape as the craft they saw. Colonel Charles Halt arrived at the base that night and heard of the incident. He was determined to debunk it because it seemed so preposterous. But that evening, the same lights were seen again in the forest. Halt ordered for floodlights to be turned on close to the woods, but the floodlights stopped working. Halt then ordered more lights to be set up immediately, and they headed to the area right away. But once there, they found the second set of lights failed too. Not only that, their vehicles and radio transmissions also failed. Colonel Halt and his team went in pursuit of the mysterious lights. They noticed a farmhouse in front of them, seemingly lit up by the object. Without warning, the bright object broke off into 5 separate white lights and moved about, and then they all disappeared into the sky. As the objects moved, they emanated laser-like pencil beams. One of the team members, Sergeant Robert Ball's first impression was that the objects seemed to have created a search grid of some sort, like they were looking for something. The beams of light came down and seemed to search several areas of the base too. It came down on the weapons storage area, including the front yard of Woodbridge. The next day, Colonel Halt submitted his report to his superiors. It was given to the authorities and the British military as well as those in the United States Air Force, but it was never acted upon. Years later, the memo for the report was released. Many believe the incident, later known as the Rendlesham Forest Incident, is one of the best documented UFO encounters because there were so many credible witnesses. Although skeptics have said the men who saw the lights were probably mistaken and saw only bright stars, perhaps a meteor, or even man-made lights. But Colonel Halt, as well as Sergeant Peniston, still believe they saw something out of this world that December. Curiously, this wasn't the first time unusual lights were reported in the area. In August of 1956, the radar station at RAF Bentwaters tracked an unusual flying object moving towards their base at 5,000 miles per hour at 10:55 p.m. Officers ordered a Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star to check out what it was, but no visual was made. An hour later, after the initial sighting, the UFO was sighted on the ground and described as a bright light traveling very fast. Several other sightings were caught on radar as well. At some point, crafts were released to intercept the unusual UFO. They were able to chase the object for about 10 minutes, but found it maneuvered too fast. Later, a memo revealed a committee who studied the event declared it was the most unusual they've encountered. The memo said they believed that because of the intelligent behavior of the UFO, it was likely a mechanical device of unknown origins. So there were two of the most mysterious and out-of-this-world stories around. The world can be a crazy place, and Twisted Twos is always sure to show you why. If you enjoyed this video, then please remember to subscribe to our channel and check out some of our other videos that come out every Wednesday and Saturday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.